Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 52. Jack Doohan has leveled up yet again, so he continues to progress. I think he's probably going to be ready for that seat away from Albon come next season. Of course, Albon's doing a good job, not making really many mistakes, but we've already seen Porsche essentially has caught up to him. They are neck and neck, and Doohan has a similar type pace, and both of those drivers have much better potential compared to Albon. So I think it's a pretty simple trade-off that, yes, Albon has done a good job, but we've just about hit his ceiling. Not completely. I mean, he'll progress, but these two will out-progress him, and that much is quite clear. On the technical chief side of things, Decathlon is who we have. Now, there's 10 teams, and one team, Alfa Romeo, has somebody way, way down the list. But the other 9 have literally the 9 best technical chiefs available. There's nobody else out there that is better. So for us to get someone other than Decathlon, because he is only 8th on that list, to get one of those 7 that are higher up, it would involve buying somebody out or catching them right near the end of their contract. And they have to be interested. And if you look at the top of the list, at least the top 2 are not. So then we'd be starting from 3rd on the list. Now, from here, we're looking at buyout fees, $3 million, $4 million, less than $1 million. They're not that bad. But how much better are we going to get from here to here? Well, better, yes, certainly, indeed, we would get better. But not by some, wild margin. It's not like we are a 70 overall and they're an 85 overall where you're gaining a substantial chunk. We're talking about 5 points. That's a much smaller gain, a much smaller margin. So we're going to stick with our team. Williams is the team. We're going to rise from the ashes as a phoenix without just burning everything down. We upgraded 1 staff, and it made a big difference, yes. But for a small upgrade, no, not going to bother. Which means, Decathlon, it's time to get our last staff contract sorted for the year. He's making 2.1 now. We're going to offer a small increase to his salary plus a lump sum for the signing. Happy with 2 out of 3. Hopefully the salary doesn't need to go up too much to get him signed. That's all we need to mess with now, though. And there you go, contract accepted. It's plus 200K, but that's not bad. That, by the way, is over the course of a season. So that's $200,000 for the season. For our next design project, remember we were going to split it up into 3 equal components to get the chassis, the side pods, and the suspension. The suspension design is already underway. Now we are going to get started on the side pod one, taking, essentially half of what remained of our tunnel time. And this is what we're going to get out of the project. A decent amount of drag reduction, nearly 3%, and engine cooling also about 2.5%, with a bit of airflow improvements as well. But you can see, where it's going to take us overall on the grid for the individual part. The drag reduction moving up, the airflow also moving up a bit, and definitely not at the back of the grid exactly, but only just kind of getting into the back end of the mid-pack in this area. But it is giving us a decent amount of gain in top speed and engine cooling. That's kind of the 2 areas where we're getting the most, even though it's spread out in what we're getting there. But, we'll take it. That DRS, look, that's 4 spots that's going up for. And again, DRS is still a much stronger area for us than actual top speed. And the third one, the chassis upgrade, drag reduction, adding 3%, that's good. Engine cooling also adding 3% and nearly 3% in airflow, across the board. Solid upgrade there. Overall top speed again comes up a little bit more, not impacting the car much. It's really minor, and that's the thing. That is why we focused on the parts that have the bigger impact on the car early, and now we're just kind of playing catch up with these guys. You can see that we're still very much at the back end of the grid when it comes to our chassis. Our car part test center is done. It would have been nice to have that before we just made a few design upgrades, but that's okay. It'll help us for the next one. One of the first places that we really found some success last season was Catalunya. The Spanish Grand Prix, Albon was 5th. Porsche nearly scored points for the first time in his career, 11th. It's amazing how far he's come in terms of that pace. From this time last season until now, he's really got that pace up there to match Albon now, and the two often are competing neck and neck. It hasn't taken that long in terms of progression to get him up there. Now, of course, Catalunya is used as a test track. For anyone not terribly familiar with Formula One, preseason testing happens here in Spain. The reason why is it has a mix of all. It has straights that are long enough to get up to speed and test your top speed, but it also has short enough straights to test your acceleration. It has low speed, medium speed, and high speed corners to test your downforce at all the various areas. This is the most balanced, well-rounded, boring track on the calendar. The boring part aside, especially boring made because the teams spend so much time here running thousands of laps where they don't get that kind of time on other tracks, that they've got millimeter perfect setups known long before you ever come to the race. Now, of course, we don't have that advantage in the game. We're going to go in and learn our setup as we go, as if we haven't been here a million times before. That being said, the more you know, the more knowledge you have entering, everybody's got literally their best setup, which means you get fewer surprises. You get surprises when things get crazy. You have wet practices, you have less time, you have red flags, you have caution periods. The less time you get out on track, the more chaotic it is. More knowledge means boring in this sport.
Formula One has cranked up the heat over Barcelona. The first Grand Prix held here was won by Nigel Mansell after a wheel-to-wheel battle with Ayrton Senna. But who will follow in his footsteps this weekend? Long straights and medium speed turns dominate here, but there's something else to watch out for at Barcelona. The air currents are strong and unpredictable, and they'll be giving aerodynamic components a real run for their money this weekend. We might still be early in the season, but that doesn't mean we can sit back and relax. Everything is up for grabs, and nothing is certain at this stage. There's nothing like a race weekend in Formula One.
And we're on to Q1, beginning our one and only flying lap here. Towards the back end of the group, just a couple cars behind us. Porsche just ahead of Albon here. Vettel has not had a clean lap as he crashed on his, but it looks like just a matter of a new wing was all it took for that one. And checkered flag starts to ring. I think we should be comfortably in the time frame, but I don't know. I don't know where we're at. We literally just passed a car on track, so that just happened. Passing them could be a problem and was a problem, and Porsche is out. So we had an AlphaTauri seemingly with an issue, ran wide or something, ended up slower, and we ended up having to pass him on track, and Porsche ends up out in Q1 for the first time. The whole let's save the tires has bit us, and we look to be a little off the pace here. As Albon embarks on his Q2 second run, things are looking good this time, 5th place, and that was on a used set, so we've got pretty good pace under us. We just had a bad run in Q1, but here's the good news about that one. It's an opportunity. Porsche out in Q1. Okay, fine, that sucks. But he's only got a couple positions to lose to take a penalty for new engine components. We're going to take all new engine components for Porsche. We knew we were going to have to do that at one point this season. I only planned on having to do it once. We just gave ourselves the perfect opportunity to do it once as Albon finishes in what looks like P6 here in Q2. And we're going to ride with Albon here on his final flying lap here in qualifying. So far, P8, but of course we do the opposite of the other teams. They all use their fresh set on the first run, and then they go out on the same set for run number 2. That's not the way to do it. We use the used set from Q2 on our first run to get the banker lap, and then we take the fresh set out for the final run here as the track ramps up a little bit more. Track grip gets higher and higher as you go on. Not the cleanest turn there, though, from Albon as he struggled, well, through each of the last 2 turns a bit and seemingly would have lost a bit of time there with the accuracy on the line not being that great. But let's see what Albon can do here. He should move up at least 2 spots, but only manages to get 1. So he's going to split the McLarens. That's a P7 starting spot. He should have been a good 1/10 of a second better, and actually based on Hamilton and Russell and their split, he probably should have split the Mercedes instead of the McLarens, but that's okay. It's still going to be a decent starting spot. Now, with Porsche starting from the back, it's possible to make passes here, but he's going to be on a different strategy for sure than what we are running with Albon, who's going to be using track position and kind of fighting for the front, and I'm pretty sure we're on a one-stopper here.
Race day has arrived and the time has come for these drivers to fight it out wheel to wheel.
Qualifying went well for Williams, as attested by their strong position on the grid. Now it's all about finding that edge for the race itself. The work Red Bull did during qualifying was nothing short of spectacular. Now let's see if they can repeat that for today's race. And the sun is shining bright here today. This is perfect weather for teams and drivers alike to show us what they're capable of.
And there are going to be some tough calls to make in Catalunya today. So let's see who makes the best ones for the Spanish Grand Prix.
Well, that's unfortunate and unexpected as we have unused parts. We have parts that are still here that we have not broken in yet. We haven't run a race with them or a practice session with them, and therefore we can't actually purchase a new one until we've tried on all of our components. So unfortunately we can't even take the grid penalty and start from the back with Porsche. Ouch for that part. That's going to make this race even worse to stomach as Porsche gets held up in Q1 and misses out entirely. That is going to be way out of position. He's a good 10 spots out of position for this race. He's going to have a lot of work to do. So we're going to split strategy with Porsche going medium, soft. It's going to allow him to have enough tire wear, spare, ability to push when he needs to try to make some passes, to be a little more aggressive, behind the wheel. I try to scoot up the grid order a bit. Meanwhile, with Albon, we're going more for strong pace. So we're going to go soft, medium, soft. I have 1 new set of mediums. I have a new set of softs. I do not have 2 sets of softs, but that last run in Q3 is a set that's only been used the once. We ran it 1 time. I'm going to go ahead and start on that set, which means we're going to pit a couple laps earlier than expected. But we'll take care of that detriment now in the first run. By running on softs, we'll have some extra pace, but they'll be the used ones early on. I still want those softs at the end of the race, the fresh one, where we can really make some ground. We can use DRS in the early stages to just keep up and conserve, which also means I think we need to go at least I think we're going to get it out of the tires, the extra pace we need. So we're going to go 2 laps light on fuel for Albon, and I'm going to go just 1 lap light for Porsche, because I want Porsche to have the ability to push when needed to make some passes. He's 11 spots behind his teammate on the grid. It's going to be different, keeping an eye on these two for a change when they're not neck and neck. We'll see how it goes. Can we get Pourchaire up into a good points-paying position, and can Albin challenge at the front? Dry race ahead of us. 99% confidence for Albin, but only 95 for Pourchaire. So another reason why he's a little bit further back.
As the sun continues to shine, it seems like nothing can dampen the mood of excitement here at the track. Here we have Alexander Albon. With a top 10 position on the grid, this race could really go either way for them. And looking at the second Williams car, with their starting position in the back 10, they'll have their work cut out for them. The teams are ready to go. This is it. It's the Spanish Grand Prix. It's lights out, and away we go.
All right, here we go, off the line, and both cars in very, very different positions, of course. Pourchaire already looking to make a move, and he's up to P17 temporarily. Can he complete that move? I mean, we want to get as much as he can, but Albin back to his starting grid spot, which is 7th. Leclerc did pick up some penalties early on, but not enough to bump him back. He had qualified first or second and had a small grid penalty. He had one new part. That's Pourchaire into P17. We're going to keep that pressure on for him, but for Albin, we want to settle in sooner rather than later. But we are looking to go 3 wide with the Ferrari and the McLaren. Can we get around both? Okay, so Albin to settle in. Meanwhile, Pourchaire is up to P16 as we've gone around Stroll, and wow, Pourchaire.
Here's the replay. Now we see the Williams here.
That was very unforced error. That was entirely on his own. Spins out and wants to start from the back again. Didn't feel his start was good enough. Wanted to try again. You're going to settle in. You got to catch up to these guys before you can have a go at them. So we're going to ride with Albin while Pourchaire starts from last. Restarts from last. You're on lap 2. Bottas on the edge of losing DRS, and that could open up a second train back there as Ocon gets by. He's under pressure. Our problem is that Leclerc is barely in DRS range on us, and he's kind of stretching to hold the gap in between ourselves and that train behind. Meanwhile, Guan Yu Zhou also losing contact, so there's another train that's going to form, and Pourchaire now just 1.5 seconds down. Yellow flag, and there's a Haas who has spun out on track.
Someone spun out.
And just like that, we are more than a second ahead of Perez, and already within striking distance of this train, which we're going to have to make our way through. We've got 5 guys to get past to get to the front of this train.
It's a stomping lap.
Albin set the fastest lap, only to have Ocon a fraction of a second later taken away from him. As light as we're going right now, let's go light for a little bit, try to extend. We're all over the back of Norris, but unable to make a move in our current state, so if we could save the tires a little bit, we can make the move later. Are we going to get enough of a run? Problem with this is it's a train, right? Each of these guys have DRS at the back end of it, so you're chasing somebody who also gets that speed boost. So instead of easy overtakes, takes a bit more. And we're on the medium, and we're surrounded by guys on the softs. But despite that, Pourchaire gets around Vettel. All right, just go neutral. See if you
And a
can't
new
drive away
position,
from these guys. It's
just
7.5
gained by
seconds.
Williams.
7.5 seconds to the next train, so that's a huge gap. We're going to lead this group. See if we can't drive away a bit from Guan Yu Zhou or from Stroll, whoever it is who ends up behind us in the near future. Do we have the pace to pull away from these guys, or is DRS enough for them to get up and challenge us? But meanwhile, with Albin, that gap is closing back down. So we eased off there for a little bit to conserve the tires, stretch a little bit. Now we've got to... we didn't get DRS. It was 9/10 of a second, but we didn't get DRS, and so we just got passed. So Albin, yeah, that's not good.
Alpine just advanced.
We didn't close back up after we turned the engine back up. We'd gotten down to about 7/10 down, but we did not get back up there. Is that the wear on the tires? As we're at 50%, our pit window is going to start. It's going to open here fairly soon. Remember, this was a use set. It's already down to 44%. Go attack on your in-lap.
Box. And then let's go push. Copy.
Usually we are a later stopper. Today we are an early stopper. 2.8 roughly. That's not a very good stop. But at least pit road was nice and clear. And you can see we're well ahead of Ricardo there as Ricardo overtakes Schumacher. And we come out way back here. Okay, we want to go aggressive just for
Afford to drop back.
half a lap or so.
Yes.
And maybe use the overtake a little bit for half a lap as we are looking to undercut. So we want
Yes.
good outlap. Porsche now, P11 of course, as two guys have pit. And we are 5 seconds behind. But also entering our pit window. Advantage, and here they go, coming off pit road, and the undercut has worked. We are ahead of Hamilton, we are ahead of Sainz, we are ahead of Norris, Ocon, well back. Magnussen, Vettel also pitting, but yeah, wow, that worked out very well. Let's continue to push as the undercut is not yet a done deal. Push for one more lap here. Now Hamilton, of course, is already on us, and he seems to be faster as we get around Sonoda. We're not going to get DRS here for the next phase, unfortunately, as we've already made that move, but can we pull away a little bit? Does Hamilton struggle to get past it? Just Verstappen this time. And where will we come out?
It's a stonking lap.
Fastest lap. And there is Verstappen still ahead of us. But we have 2 second advantage, 2.5 second advantage over Hamilton. Can we get in DRS of Verstappen? If we can get in DRS range with him, we have a very different race on our hands.
And a new position.
And now that's Hamilton and Sainz, as Sonoda has pit, so he's no longer there. 2.4. Let's see, is that gap going to close as we push? 2.2. Right now it is closing. Right now it is closing. I want you to push. Turn that engine up. Close that gap.
Okay.
If we can get up on Verstappen and then get the benefit of DRS from following him, then things are looking good. Leclerc into the pits, Gasly into the pits, Bottas into the pits. Porsche is going to be up to P2 here in a moment. There's the detection. We were 0.9 behind, and we have it. We have DRS. We have DRS. Back to balanced. We used up our battery, but we are back to balanced.
Copy.
Let's close that gap a little bit further as Verstappen makes a pass on track of Alonso. We are going to have to get around as well if we want to keep up with Verstappen. Side by side, still not able to complete the move as he had it as well. So he was still less than a second behind, but we do finally get around Alonso into P3 and Pourchaire. To establish that position. Alonso stays out. Is Alonso one of the ones on the hard compound? He is. So is Perez. Perez is all the way down to P15 though, and has not pit yet. So Pourchaire has extended longer than anybody else on the mediums. And we've got things to do. We've got to get back down to about 1.5 kilograms before the last stint. We've definitely got to refill this battery before long. And at some point, I think we're going to have to back off on the tires a bit. Share
Yes.
comes out in P15. We still have the two guys that have not pit yet. I think we will be ultimately a net ahead of them. So P13 is the net now, which is where we were. But those guys that were following us, most of them, all of them actually, were outside of DRS range. After that, we'll have to close up on Magnussen, kind of one by one. But we've left our train behind, pushed on to the next train, and that was while extending for a couple of laps. Still net P13 though, as the car we just passed
gained by Williams.
is on a different strategy. It has not pit yet. And remember, we passed Perez on track. A whole pit stop later, and we're already back ahead of him. Very different from where we were season 1, where we really couldn't afford to use the battery except for a couple times all race, because we couldn't recharge it because we would literally lose DRS in half a lap. We'd lose that much pace if we weren't going neutral. Here you can see we're almost passing Verstappen while harvesting. We have enough pace to do so, to get that battery nice and full, and it is just about there now. Being light on fuel is helping with the pace, so conserving the tires. Multiple cars have crashed. We have a McLaren and a Ferrari, it looks like.
Currently yellow at 7.
We can take a look now. Watch this. There's Leclerc.
So it's going to be... Oh, Leclerc runs wide and then comes back across the track.
And it's crystal
and
clear
just
who was in the wrong
smacks
there.
the side of the McLaren. And Norris, the other one, also in the pits. Both with damage. That's going to rule them out. But also helps Pourchaire, who's now P11. Alonso has already pit, so that is P11. And Pourchaire has caught Magnussen. Ooh, blocked. Wow, that was dangerous. Dangerous block there from Magnussen. That was very late that he swept over and got in front of us. We had to get out of that one very quick. Just go ahead and keep the pressure on through the rest of the lap. We'll get him on the start-finish straight. Nine tenths. But again, we've inched away, but we aren't quite getting out of that DRS zone. DRS range, that is. Albon still just 2/10 behind Verstappen. Over a second, but he's got the flap open. So it wasn't until after the detection zone. So P10 for Porsche from last place and well off the back. Position is improving. We are now less than a second behind and should be getting DRS. 9/10 behind at the detection zone. It was 0.8 something moments before it. There was no reason to have not had DRS that time. That's infuriating that the game does that when you are clearly less than a second behind. But now we're back, right? We're out of the zone. And now we're going to have to chase Verstappen as a result. So we don't get it again for the next zone. With front 5 well ahead, I think my target for Porsche right now, I'd love to get him up into P6. I do not want to see a safety car or anything like that.
There's been a lockup.
That could be devastating for our race hopes. Right now, I'd rather have Albon fighting first, second.
DRS is currently disabled.
Okay, we caught Verstappen. DRS is disabled. What just happened?
Let's reduce lifting coast by 1 level.
Oh.
Okay.
Wow, we just burnt that in. Well, it wasn't a full battery, was it? Go neutral. Gap's starting to open up just a little bit. Turn the engine up just for a moment. Use that DRS, and the engine turned up to close back down. Earlier I said 1.5 was my target. Later I said I want to get that under 1. We've hit the 1.5 target, but we are pretty close on that pit window. We're going to be pitting fairly soon. Uh-oh. Again, the chicane. That chicane. Verstappen is so much faster through the chicane than we are. And we just lost Verstappen. Unless we can close up on Verstappen again. Sainz, Hamilton, Ricciardo all pitting. Meanwhile, Porsche driving aggressive because he can. We're going to conserve until we get to the DRS detection zone. If we can, we're going to get ahead of Verstappen there. Not without using battery or anything. And not without pushing, just driving neutral. We got it down to 1.3. It's better than what I expected. Not quite what I hoped, but, you know, getting there. Balanced. Okay, Porsche. Holding off Gasly for the time being. Now just within 2 seconds of Ocon and Bottas. So we have gotten closer to these guys. We were about 4 seconds behind them. Now just 2 seconds down. And not far from our pit stop either. But unlike earlier where we wanted to undercut here, going the other way with it. We are already at that front position and we're better with DRS than we are without. We can conserve tires, we can conserve fuel, and we can ride with Verstappen till the and Porsche is going to come out in between, or Porsche is in between Verstappen and Albon. In the case of Porsche, I want you to attack. Oh, we're going to go standard right away. Okay, Gasly pit, so that's why Porsche is suddenly on his own. Okay, push on the tires because you can keep up with Albon. But Albon, we need to get it back to Verstappen, 2 seconds behind. Sainz is nearly in DRS range of Albon. That's a worry. He just set the fastest lap as well. Porsche into the pits for his final stop. He's got the fresh softs. He's a couple laps behind everybody else. I'm putting theirs on. Okay, there is Alonso ahead. Alonso has not pit. Alonso's on mediums already at 62%, and we're going to come out just behind Gasly. We're going to have to pass him all over again, and actually P12. So how did that one happen? Leclerc. Leclerc has not pit yet either, so Leclerc. Okay, so Albon from P2. Verstappen, used tire. All of those guys came out on used tires. So Albon's got a significant advantage there, but he is 3 seconds behind. Porsche now 25 seconds behind. So they both lost that same time, right? 22 seconds for the pit stop. Verstappen's pace, but we aren't. The others aren't. And because of coming out behind Porsche, who, even though we pushed like crazy, he was slow as well. Porsche takes the new fastest lap. Lap 54, though. We've got some fuel to recover in a fairly short period of time here. And we're past Ocon just like that. That was quick and easy. 1.8 behind Leclerc. We're going to need to close up there as well. Go ahead and just use the aggressive nature to get there.
Pushing on, pushing on.
And meanwhile, Albon, 2.9 and 2.8 behind. That's the other important part. We are driving away from those guys. We are slowly gaining on Verstappen. Go ahead and use the overtake to get a little more pace.
Okay.
We're going to have to turn this down. We've got to get the fuel right.
Just do lift and coasting. Okay.
Up 2, down 1. And Leclerc peels off into the pits, and that is P8. We do still get DRS. Good thing we were close enough to Bottas there. Yellow flag, sector 2. Somebody had a mistake.
And there's an overtake from Williams.
Oh, I thought it was Porsche for a second. That was just the overtake on Bottas.
Seems to have been a lockup.
Verstappen with the lockup, and Albon's in the race lead. Verstappen all the way down in P5. Okay. Verstappen with a big mistake there. We've almost used up our battery, but we've also almost gotten the fuel neutral. We're going to have to continue pushing like this until we can get the fuel neutral, but Porsche is almost there as well. Hello, hello, hello. Things have changed. Porsche, fastest lap. Almost a second behind Ricciardo now. You're going to make the pass anyway, aren't you? You're going to make the pass anyway. Yes, you are.
Okay, back off.
Okay, aggressive. Balanced, as we have a positive delta now. And we'll just go neutral.
What you doing?
Okay, meanwhile, Albon. We are 3.6 seconds ahead of Sainz. 3.6 seconds ahead of Sainz, and Porsche is 6th, but he's 10 seconds behind Verstappen. Sector 1, yellow. Somebody's had an issue.
I think someone's run
Russell
wide.
runs wide. And there you go. Positive delta. Positive delta. Albon. We'll keep an eye on that gap. Meanwhile, Porsche is holding off Ricciardo. More than a second ahead, but he gets DRS. We're 9/10 down. We don't get it. He's 1.1 down. He does get it. Go conserve. Let's get a 0.1 just to be safe.
Reduce lift and coast by 1 level. Okay, copy.
And we've got it. Back to balanced. An ultimate lap begins. Lap 65. Fuel is good for both. Main competitors in the constructors is Red Bull. Perez is 20th. He's not scoring points. Verstappen is only 5th. Porsche has the fastest lap and is running 6th. And Albon leads the race. Next closest competitor, behind us, Ferrari. Leclerc. Leclerc is out of the points. Sainz 3rd. Final lap of the race. Final lap of the race. 0.2 kilograms now on the leftovers. Porsche 3.5 seconds ahead of Ricardo. 10 seconds behind these guys. And Hamilton's still all over the back of Verstappen. Sainz and Russell. That's the race right now, as long as we don't make a mistake with Albon. And he will take the win. That's a win for Albon. Russell will hang on for P2. Sainz 3. That's the podium spot where Verstappen only recovers to P4. Hamilton P5. And Porsche will finish in P6. And has the fastest lap of the race. Added bonus point as well. Good recovery drive from Porsche from P20 to P6. That was my ultimate goal for him. I did not hope for any higher. Sector 3, somebody's had an issue. Ricardo takes 7. Bottas 8. Ocon. It was Vettel with the lockup. He's down the order anyway. Not that far though, because Leclerc was P13. He ends up P12. So big win from Albon. Of course, gifted by a mistake from Verstappen. Otherwise, it was looking like a very solid, well-earned P2. The undercut, working beautifully today, is not something that I have used hardly at all. We've tried to extend and be fast at the end of a race. 34 points as a team is a very solid haul. Albon, 10 points behind Verstappen right now. And we have the current lead in the Constructors' Championship, 6 points ahead of Red Bull, and continually looking strong. 3rd win of the year, 4 podiums, couple fastest laps in 6 races. And look, I mean, it's identical to Red Bull, other than we have an extra fastest lap. They have 5 pole positions out of 6 races, and yet we are 6 points ahead. We've been consistent. Ferrari have the other pole position, which they had in this race, I believe. 2 fastest laps and 3 podiums. McLaren 1 podium. Mercedes have 1 podium, and they solidly make a pretty big gain today with a very good performance to move up to P5 in the Constructors and just 7 points behind McLaren, who barely scored today. Alpine do have a fastest lap so far this season, and then that's it. But we have 8, 7, and 6 at the bottom of the standings, with AlphaTauri, Haas, and Aston Martin separated by just 2 points. Aston Martin adding 1 to their total today. Continually consistent as a performer this year, looking a little bit like real life, where that back 3 is definitely the back 3, but that back 3 is competing with one another regularly and squeezing their way into the points here and there. Alfa Romeo look to be about 7th best. I think they're in the right spot right now. Alpine do look to be about 6th best. I think right now the standings are about right. Mercedes, I think, might overtake McLaren before too long. They had a rough start to the year. Their car, on paper, looks to be about 4th quickest, but they had a really rough start to the year. I do think they eventually will get ahead of McLaren, theoretically. At this stage, we have doubled Ferrari's points. I have a feeling that we might stay ahead of them. I do not have a feeling that we will stay ahead of Red Bull. They are too strong. There's going to be too many tracks that they are just quicker than us. We have had good strategy in most races, and it has paid off. And we will continue to compete, and I think we will ultimately compete with Red Bull. I just don't think we're going to necessarily be able to actually beat them. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.